Thank you. So what we're going to do is go through what what Gravity is first of all, and why it's kind of essentially put all its eggs in the basket in terms of supporting event-driven use cases. So what we'll do first of all is talk about what Gravity is. Gravity is a unified API management platform. So it kind of classic architecture slide. But essentially what it's doing is that rather than just an API management tool, it's allowing you to design APIs, like manage them, create them, secure them, and then subsequently publish them as well. So kind of very interesting. What I should really spend some more time on here, but coming from what I've just experienced in terms of that conversation about design specifications, what I thought was I will just go through and show you Gravity, and I'll show you one particular aspect of it, and this is super interesting when it comes to design. So I kind of came from a development world, and what I found about APIs is that you started, like you learn all this stuff, good stuff at university about designing stuff first, documenting it, blah blah blah. But with APIs, we kind of forgot all about that good stuff. We essentially created the back-end service, and then your manager will say, oh, Elesh, I'd put some APIs in front of that because people might want that data. And then if you were really unlucky, someone will say, you better document it as well. And then if you were super unlucky, you better put some design spec. So we went right from code, and then we went right to design backwards. So what Gravity did was they took that knowledge and they said, actually, let's create something that will like democratize the ability to design APIs in an API designer. So you can create these kind of designs like this where you can edit it, you can add attributes, you can do some really good stuff in terms of kind of taking the requirements and building forward. And then what Gravity will do is that it will push that design into documentation automatically for you. And you've got all your attributes here. You can build your attributes. You can have types. You can even have mock responses, right? So now what you've got is you've got a design first. You've got the documentation. You can mock your responses and then push it to API Manager. So all of a sudden, for synchronous and asynchronous APIs, you're actually taking essentially a design, automatically documenting it, mocking it, and then pushing it to API Manager. So on day one, you have the ability to present a set of APIs which can be tested. And I think even though it's never done this way, I mean, we've got customers like L'Oreal and PostNL at Gravity that are actually doing it like forward first thinking. Like they're democratizing the use of APIs by presenting the designer and forward kind of engineering their API strategy using API Designer as well. So it kind of falls back onto what we just talked about, but it's just a different take on it. So just going back to the slides very quickly, what Gravity is doing is that it's basically taking all those 6 principles. So in terms of design, pushing the APIs into API Manager, publishing them into a portal, and then you've got the ability to debug and monitor. Now, what we've done over the last couple of years is that we've seen that a lot of our customers always talk about Kafka, always talk about MQTT, RabbitMQ, Solace. So they've got, maybe not today, but they're certainly thinking about moving into that event-driven world. This was particularly prevalent by COVID, because we actually had a lot of companies saying, we are losing revenue. How do we kind of create new revenue streams for actually kind of matching what we had earlier? Now, this isn't very well hidden. If I said to you, it's an American baseball federation. I can't mention their name, but there's a pretty big one. But they basically came to, they had a way, they wanted to monetize such that they could match their revenues from, before COVID. And what they said was, how can we gain revenue streams from all the data that we're producing? So what they did was that they basically realized that so karma's pretty bad on this one, so forgive me for this one. So what they did was they said that if we could understand the health statistics of basketball players. So this was a brilliant POC to work on as a sales engineer. So we had like data sensors on basketball players, and it was monitoring the health of that basketball player on a given game. Right, they'd play a game, but you'd understand their heart rate, and you'd manage and other health stats, and you'd compare it against good, bad, not healthy, etc. So you'd have all this data coming in, and then what the gambling companies would do was say, okay, this player isn't at the optimal performance level today. We'll raise their odds on playing well, making shots, blah blah blah. So more people would put money on that player or on that team, such that they'd gain more revenue. And incredibly, that kind of revenue stream, if you think about the analytics and the modeling behind what is happening there, that's a real-time use case for APIs. And what this particular federation wanted to do was that they wanted to not have to talk to Kafka in a native way. They just wanted to hit an API, and they wanted to consumers to consume that API with just a REST proxy. So now you're pushing data in, you're pulling data out. For this one in particular, it was 600,000 transactions per second that we kind of did the POC on. But they have raised that to 1 million transactions per second, and that is API calls. So that's like next level speed in terms of what the gateway is able to handle. And also, you've not only got rate limiting on there in terms of the consumption, but you've also got API keys. So that's with security, you're able to get to that many transactions per second. But this is where we are seeing a lot more kind of increase in the use cases of actually democratizing the use of event sources without having to, create lots of functional code in front of and behind. All you're doing is you're just publishing an endpoint and allowing people to consume that data in a super straightforward way. Okay, so what we found is that we've got these different architectures for Kafka. So one of them, the first one, is protocol mediation. Sounds really fancy, but essentially it's like you've got a backend, whether it's async or sync, and you just want to talk to it using a REST API. That's it. You just basically want to kind of hide the complexity of that event source at the back end and just talk to it via an API. That's protocol mediation. Generic TCP, that's working at that bottom level, at that binary level, able to kind of talk to these endpoints in a native way. The Kafka Gateway, that's the most interesting one. That's coming up. Let me talk about that last. And federation. This is where we've got lots of customers. I mean, this is where you're working into an enterprise business. They've got loads of different types of gateways. But what they want to do is they want to, it's craziness, right? They've got loads of different gateways, loads of different APIs. The first thing people say is, we don't know what we've got in our estate. Let's bring it all together into one developer portal so we can, first of all, answer the question, what have we got? What have we duplicated? What's redundant? And what Gravitee Federation allows you to do is bring in APIs from other gateways and just surface them in one developer portal. So Federation is that ability to see everything in one place and then solve the problem to actually make sure your API stack is as efficient as possible. Kafka Gateway, that with protocol mediation, you break the protocol. You put REST in front of Kafka. With Kafka Gateway, you're actually proxying Kafka to Kafka. And what that means is that you're natively talking to Kafka. That means that you can look at the topics, you can create topics, you can delete topics, you can do all that topic management. We had a particular customer that wanted to say, we've got this horrific Kafka stack behind us. We want to give a nice interface around it so that I want to give my customers the ability to call topic A. They don't need to know what topics they're writing at the back end, but they can just have a nice interface in terms of what they're talking to. So you've got the ability to create this concept of virtual topics under Kafka as well. So what Gravitee is doing is trying to kind of, for some reason, the only word I can think of is democratizing the use of event sources. Because normally you've got lots of complexity, you've got lots of protocols. Remember, I kind of concentrate on Kafka here, but you've also got, like IoT data sources like MQTT. We've got a customer that's got these MQTT sensors, brokers sitting on wind turbines as well. All that data streaming through. The topic of the talk was event driven. We've got customers using MQTT sensors on cars to understand, what people are driving past, so they can, give them relevant adverts on their cars to depending on where they're traveling to or from as well. So you've got that real-time ability to understand where you're going and the context around what you can see. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to try to do a demo. Okay, so forgive me if it goes wrong, but at least I tried. Okay, so what we've got here is that we've got a Confluent Cloud cluster. Right, so we've got some messages coming through there. So let's see if we can get this. So essentially what we've got here is Gravitee API Manager. And traditionally, when you're creating an API or proxying an API, you've seen this 1,000 times before. Let's create demo API, and let's create this as a publish. So I'm going to create an API called demo API publish. I'm going to do 0.1, validate my endpoint. But this time, instead of proxying a kind of a Java Spring Boot application or something normal, I'm going to kind of proxy Kafka. So let's do that. I'm going to do a post. I'm going to select my entry points. The context path, I'm going to do the API publish. Okay, validate my entry points. But now my backend service is Kafka. But you can see that there's other backend services that we support as well. So here's the real kicker. So let's don't worry, this is just a demo endpoint, so don't panic. I'm not gonna get in trouble for this. And this is the Jazz config. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a HTTP post to Kafka. Producer, I'm going to use SASL because it's Confluent Cloud. It needs SASL. So let's just put my config in here. And the topic that I'm going to write to is called general data. Okay, so I usually make a mistake here, but I'll just check it just to make sure. Okay, so that's cool. That's cool. And I'm going to do a post. So all of a sudden, what I've done is that I've added a REST proxy in front of my Kafka cluster. So if I head over to Postman now, which I didn't have open, but if I now go to, let's go to, I think it's that one. Let's try that one. Yeah, okay, this one. So I called it, my entry point was, let's open that. I think it's demo API publish. Just check my entry point there. Just steal that. Okay, and just go over to lovely Postman. And now, so basically I've got a REST proxy I'm writing, and if I do API days free there and send. Okay, so that might be perfect because it's done a 202 accepted. So that message should have been pushed over. So I didn't notice any other messages that you sent. So I just sort of stop. So I'll stop there, but you can see that message just landed as well. Okay, thank you so much.